Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories. US President Donald Trump signals progress on the Gaza ceasefire during his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian says Tehran is open to dialogue with the United States. The Texas floods' death toll continues to rise, with at least 104 people confirmed dead. US President Donald Trump hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, signalling progress on Gaza ceasefire talks and discussing potential Palestinian relocation plans.
Thank you very much, everybody.
US President Donald Trump hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday, expressing optimism about Gaza ceasefire efforts and suggesting plans to relocate Palestinians. Trump said talks with Hamas were going along very well. He claimed Hamas was open to a ceasefire and noted that neighboring countries were cooperating on possible relocation efforts. Netanyahu spoke about efforts with the US to find countries willing to offer Palestinians a better future. On Gaza's future, Netanyahu dismissed the prospect of full Palestinian statehood, insisting that Israel would maintain long-term security control over the territory.
I want to present to you.
He also presented Trump with a letter nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize.
It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved.
Trump expressed a desire to eventually lift the tough sanctions imposed on Iran, hoping the country could rebuild peacefully. He noted Iran's stance had softened, with talks planned, and expressed hope for peace while affirming US readiness if needed.
We have scheduled Iran talks, and they want to talk. They took a big drubbing, I think, when we hit the three sites, really. I would say the three sites, not just the one. The one was a big one, and it was deep in granite, and it was obliterated. It turned out the Atomic Energy Commission said it is obliterated. I would just want to take our hats off to those incredible flyers, the people that flew that big machine, and frankly, the mechanics and everybody else. I mean, they had zero. They flew for 37 hours with zero problem mechanically.
Additionally, Trump announced the resumption of weapons deliveries to Ukraine.
Surrounding countries, great cooperation.
Previously, our very own Anastasia Lavrina discussed the recent Trump-Netanyahu meeting and the Gaza ceasefire with Adam Areli, former US ambassador to Bahrain, former diplomat Gustavo de Aristegui, and Glenn Howard, founder and chairman of the Saratoga Foundation. Glenn shared his insights on the complexities of US interests. Gustavo addressed the challenges involving Hamas and Gaza itself, and Adam discussed the erosion of trust in the US from the perspective of the Gulf states.
So that after the recent attacks on Iran, they really want to try to strike some type of agreement with Iran on its nuclear program, and whether they'll get that is a different thing. And obviously, I think in that regard, there's a difference in views between President Trump and Netanyahu on how to proceed with Iran. But President Trump's goals are basically to try to get this Gaza prisoners and hostages released, and so that's obviously been a key part of what they've been negotiating for 21 months now. And so this is a very key important goal of the Trump administration.
I think it's immoral not to say that Hamas is a terrorist organization. We've seen what they've done in the past and what they're capable of doing, and they are holding their own people hostage. I am probably one of the very few Western politicians that actually spend time living and sleeping in different parts of Gaza along my political career before I went back to the Foreign Service. And I can tell you that the atmosphere in Gaza, even when the Palestinian National Authority was in charge before 2007 and before Hamas took over, and the result is visible and we know what it is like, it was already very oppressive because their presence on the streets was felt, and nobody would dare do anything that could upset the, as they call them in that part of the world, the bearded ones.
United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait are left with somebody who's shaken the hornet's nest and then walks away. And then the hornets are all buzzing, wanting to sting somebody, and the person who can protect them is like saying, "Oh, I want to kiss and make up with the hornet." So the point here is that, you know, American constancy, American consistency, American predictability. You know, the definition of risk is the absence of predictability. And so a relationship with the United States is very risky because you can't predict what they're going to do.
In a rare interview, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian addressed the fragile state of regional relations, expressing Tehran's willingness to engage in dialogue with the US aimed at resolving conflict and restoring peace. During an interview with Tucker Carlson, he said that Tehran is open to dialogue with the United States and added that he believes Iran can resolve its differences, but that trust would be an issue. The Iranian leader urged US President Donald Trump not to be drawn into war with Iran by Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu. The comments come as Netanyahu visits President Trump in Washington for talks. The US is raising tariffs on key trade partners. President Donald Trump has announced new 25% duties on all imports from Japan and South Korea, set to begin on the 1st of August. The White House says the tariffs aim to secure fairer trade deals, with President Trump sending letters to Japan and South Korea warning of further duties. 12 more nations are set to receive similar notices. Trump extended the tariff deadline from the 9th of July to the 1st of August. Markets reacted, with the S&P 500 down nearly 1% and Japanese car stocks falling as trade talks with other nations continue.
I have the signed letters that went out to both South Korea and Japan today, and there will be approximately 12 other countries that will receive notifications and letters directly from the President of the United States. I want to go back to the trade deals. As you see, we have these beautiful letters that the President has signed. This one is to the President of the Republic of Korea, original signature on that, and these will be mailed. And then here we also have another letter to the Prime Minister of Japan as well. Both countries will be receiving a 25% tariff rate effective on August.
Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has confirmed ongoing trade talks with the United States amid rising tensions over tariffs. Speaking from Tokyo, Ishiba emphasized Japan's firm stance in negotiations, rejecting easy concessions, reaching an agreement while aiming to protect national interests. In a meeting with cabinet ministers, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said Japan would continue negotiations with the United States following President Donald Trump's announcement of a 25% tariff on Japanese goods, starting on the 1st of August. However, Ishiba affirmed that talks with the US remain ongoing as Japan seeks a fair bilateral arrangement. In Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has criticised US President Donald Trump's social media threats to impose tariffs on BRICS countries, calling the move irresponsible. He made the comment at the press conference during the BRICS summit. Lula added that the group doesn't want to affront anyone, but other nations have the right to reciprocate. It follows Trump's announcement on his Truth platform that the US would impose an additional 10% tariff on countries aligned with so-called anti-American policies of the BRICS group.
We don't want an emperor. Our countries are sovereign. If Trump issues tariffs, other countries have the right to do the same. There is the reciprocity law. I think it's not responsible for a president from a country like the US to threaten the world with tariffs on social media. Honestly, there are other forums for the president of a country the size of the United States to talk to other countries.
At least 104 people have died in flash floods that began early Friday in central Texas. Volunteer teams are assisting with the ongoing relief and recovery efforts across the affected areas.
The death toll has risen to at least 104 people after torrential rains lashed Texas Hill Country before dawn on Friday, transforming the Guadalupe River into a deadly torrent in under an hour. A vigil was held in Kerr County, which is the worst affected of the 20 counties in the region, with at least 84 fatalities, including 28 children. At least 27 were campers from Camp Mystic, a nearly century-old Christian summer camp for girls located along that river. Search and rescue teams are still working around the clock to find the missing 10 girls and a camp counsellor. In the nearby town of Center Point, volunteers gather supplies for victims, while recovery efforts struggle with damaged roads and infrastructure.
So things kind of come and go, but at the end of the day, it's about relationships and it's about picking each other up. Like a lot of times we always kind of joke, like the only time we're looking down on somebody is when we're helping them back up. And I think when people come together like this is exactly what we're doing, is we're coming together as a unified front and we're helping up our brothers and sisters.
Rebuilding is kind of the easy part, in all honesty. It's really getting past. We're still in search and rescue going on right now. The hill country is a loving place. It's hill country love that's going on, but it'll take a while, and we'll have to process through that. But our first thing right now is really to take care of our friends and neighbors that have lost everything, and we're still searching for some of our neighbors and friends too.
Meanwhile, as local volunteer teams load supplies and support flood victims on the ground, national attention is turning toward the devastated region, with President Trump expected to visit the disaster zone on Friday.
Tajikistan has expressed readiness to join the China Kyrgyzstan Uzbekistan railway project at a ministerial meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Fraser Kalmarzina brings the details.
Tajikistan has expressed its readiness to join the China Kyrgyzstan Uzbekistan railway project. This topic was discussed during the 12th meeting of transport ministers from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states, where Tajikistan's Minister of Transport held a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart. The parties also explored opportunities to expand the multimodal corridor connecting China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran and Turkey. According to Dushanbe, this corridor could significantly reduce distances and transportation costs compared to existing routes. Another topic on the agenda was a Chinese-supported initiative to open an electric vehicle service center in Dushanbe. However, details regarding the project's timing and location remain undisclosed. Additionally, Tajikistan proposed increasing the number of licenses for international road transport, highlighting the growing volume of trade and freight traffic between the two nations. Experts note that Tajikistan's interest in this project stems largely from its geographic isolation and limited access to international transport routes. Currently, the country heavily relies on infrastructure in neighboring states, primarily Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Russia. Participation in the China Kyrgyzstan Uzbekistan project offers Tajikistan a chance to join a promising southern transport corridor, providing access to China, the Persian Gulf, Turkey, and Europe while bypassing northern routes. Additionally, the railway is expected to diversify trade opportunities. In 2023, trade turnover between Tajikistan and China exceeded $1.5 billion, with Chinese imports accounting for over 80%. Developing railway logistics will enable Tajikistan to boost exports, particularly in mineral resources, aluminum, textiles, and agricultural products. Economists also emphasize that joining this project could provide Tajikistan with transit revenue. The launch of this new railway line will support the creation of logistics hubs and warehousing terminals across the country, with potential key junctions in Dushanbe, Kujant, and Nurek. Fariza Kalimurzana, A News in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Airports across Iran have opened over the weekend, and many residents of the capital that fled the Israeli strikes have returned home. Day-to-day life after the 12-day war seems to be returning to normal. Our Turaj Shirililiu has the details in Tehran.
As a sign of gradual normalization of post-war conditions, Tehran's Mehrabad Airport and the International Imam Khomeini Airport as well as other major airports across the country, resumed their operations over the weekend, while more embassies are announcing return of their staff to their diplomatic missions in Tehran. The Civil Aviation Authority has put a time limit for the flights from 5 a.m. to 18 p.m., which indicates Iran does not want to risk its airspace security in the wake of U.S.-Israeli strikes, which were predominantly airborne. Schools and universities are already closed for long summer holidays, which run up to late September, with academic examinations postponed from July to August. Also, the country's health network, which underwent war conditions and was also attacked in a number of occasions by Israel, has stepped out of the state of emergency as official figures put the number of death toll at 935 during 12 days of war. In the meantime, Tehran's unofficial currency market, which saw the surging exchange rate of about 970,000 rials per $1, is plummeted to 920,000 rials per $1. And the stock market is experiencing its first signs of viability following a record plunge during the war. Many residents, especially Tehranis, who had evacuated the capital during Israel's attacks, have returned to their houses and jobs, while a fragile ceasefire is holding between Iran on one side and the US and Israel on the other. And despite of resumption of routine life patterns, there are signals of the post-ceasefire uncertainties about its future, as Iran and US have not agreed on the date and venue of their next round of negotiations so far. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
The United Nations is sounding the alarm over a growing humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, as more than 1.4 million people, most of them returnees from Iran and Pakistan, have poured into the country in just the first half of 2025. Tamim Bahis is in Kabul with more.
According to the UN Refugee Agency, the sheer scale and speed of these returns are overwhelming aid efforts. UNHCR's representative in Afghanistan, Arafat Jamal, says the support system is on the brink of collapse as funding falls short and daily arrivals continue to rise. Iran has seen the largest surge, particularly after June 13. On July 1st alone, over 43,000 Afghans returned from Iran, nearly 9 times the daily average earlier this year. In Pakistan, similar trends have emerged, with over 150,000 people returning in April, amid crackdowns and looming deportation deadlines. The UN says many of these returns are happening under coercive conditions, raising serious concerns about safety and dignity. Emergency teams have been dispatched to key border points like Islam Kala in Herat, providing hot meals, emergency cash, and essential supplies. But officials warn that without immediate funding, these life-saving operations could grind to a halt within weeks. So far, only 28% of the needed $216 million has been raised. This crisis comes on the heels of harsh refugee policies by neighboring countries. In 2023, Pakistan began expelling over 1 million undocumented Afghans, many fleeing Taliban persecution. Human Rights Watch says deportation often target women, children, and high-risk individuals. As the pressure mounts, the UN is urging the international community to act quickly before this growing emergency turns into a full-blown catastrophe. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan have officially submitted a joint bid to host the 2027 FIFA U20 World Cup. If approved, it would mark the first FIFA tournament co-hosted by Central Asia and the South Caucasus. FIFA has launched the evaluation process, and officials say both nations are fully prepared to host the tournament with modern stadiums, professional organisation capabilities and passionate local support.
Yeah, okay.
That's the world news from Baku for now. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.